Hello, boxing fans around the world. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Friday Night Panel with yours truly, Mike Orr, and my man Lou Eisen. Lou, it's just me and you tonight.
Yes.
For the beginning, we're going to open it up.
Yes.
I guess we'll talk about let's talk about this Eubank fiasco that
Yes.
me and you last week were sure that this wasn't going to happen because of the wonderful performance that Liam Smith put on in the first bout. But I guess you
Yes.
know what? They're one apiece. There's got to be a trilogy.
Yes, absolutely. And earlier in the week when we were all meeting, Neil said to me after the meeting, "Well, I guess you and Mike were wrong. I guess old Neil was right." And I said, "Yeah, Liam Smith had to lose something like 40 pounds a month out from or 5 weeks out from the fight." And I
Yeah,
said, "But that's not an excuse. He could have said, I can't make the weight. There's no fight." And
right.
he didn't look into it, right? When he was walking from the dressing room, his body wasn't sweating
No,
and he didn't look in shape and he just didn't look into it. What
no,
do you think?
no. Same. I didn't think. I think he looked. I'll tell you though. I put on both fights side by side, screen to screen. First round kind of looked the same as the opening of the first bout. Second, you could kind of see that fatigue kind of set in early, and it was kind of from there where I feel Eubank kind of just started owning him. Smith just didn't look like he was about it, but 40 pounds that's a lot. I'm not making any excuses. He knew that this rematch was coming up. Maybe he took it a little too lightly because of the way that the first match went. I guess he wasn't expecting Eubank to be as good as he looked that fight, but I guess this sets it up for a trilogy.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you and I were saying last week, it's a lack of discipline. There's no excuse for this.
Right.
The fight's coming up, and I always go back to this during the making of Cinderella Man. One night we were sitting in Angelo Dundee's hotel room, a bunch of the actors, and we're watching a football game, and he was from Miami. You see a Miami Dolphin guy get a pass in the end zone, and there's no one within 20 yards of him, and he drops it. And Angelo said, "Dumb, dumb, dumb, dumb mother,"
Yeah.
and everyone said, "Hey, he's human. Come on. People make errors." He said, "Not pros. Not when you get 20 million a year. That's not excusable." And for Liam Smith, for the money he got, he should have been in shape. He should have known what he was getting into. And I hope this fight gives credit to Bomac, to Brian McIntyre, because before the fight, when he was interviewed, I love what he said. He said, "I loves me a fish sandwich." No, he said that when he was asked, "What did you do? What did you change with Eubanks?" He said, "Nothing. You don't change a fighter's natural style. I told him to forget what everyone else had said. Go back to your natural style and just remember to move your feet constantly. Keep turning them." And that's what he did. And that's what Charles
Exactly.
Goldman used to say, and Angelo and Ray Arcel and Gil Clancy. Don't alter a guy's natural style. Just augment it. So Bomac did a great job. And
Yes.
you got to give him credit for being a great trainer. Not a great traveler, but a
Right.
great trainer.
Definitely. I was very impressed with, that constant movement. That's one thing that we did see a lot more from Eubank was that constant movement, not keeping his feet flat. He was more on his toes, more on that hoppy step more than that flat-footed kind of style. But that's that flat-footed style shows fatigue. And honestly, he looked in great shape. He was bouncing
He
around right to
really
the end.
did.
He
The way
did.
he jumped over the ropes, you could tell, and the look on his face when he was throwing punches in the ring before the fight. You thought he's into it.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
waited a lifetime for this. Now it's his chance at redemption, and he's not going to let go of it. And he looked in shape, and you could hear Bomac yelling, "Jab, jab, jab, move your feet, jab." And that's, he had a better corner, I think.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not the corner, but Smith just, he wasn't there mentally. He was not in the fight. He had checked out.
Yeah, that's what I believe. I give it to him for lasting as long as he did, because he took some punishment
He
in that one.
certainly did.
He certainly did. And with Smith, I've noticed he does have that a lot of scar tissue in the eyebrow problem.
Hmm.
That one shot will just bang slap it open, and then that bleeding. Mr. Beefy there, he does take a lot of shots. He's got all
Yeah.
that scar tissue. He looks beat up. He took a lot of punishment in that. I think for the next fight, we're gonna have to see a different Liam Smith, definitely.
And he's going to have to wonder if he wants that next fight, if he can still make the weight.
Yeah, because to drop 40 pounds, that's a lot, man. You shouldn't be 40 pounds up past your fight weight. Like that's
no. And here's the thing. I mean, for me, as you can tell, dropping 40 pounds is a haircut, right? But if somebody said to me, it's 6 weeks, you got to fight in 6 weeks, you can drop 40 pounds. I would say realistically, I can drop 2, knowing me. Drop 40. That's just not going to happen.
That's a lot of dehydration.
Yeah, and send fighters into the ring like that. That's what happens when you have to. Your only struggle is losing weight and being dehydrated. There's nothing left to focus on in training camp.
Right.
You know, just as you said, he took a fearful beating.
Yeah.
I mean, he stayed in there and he didn't want to quit when the referee stopped that. But that's all fighters.
Yeah, sometimes you got to save them from themselves. There's that point where they're taking damage. They're causing long-term. There's going to be long-term issues from some of the damage these guys take. And as a fighter, you got that warrior heart. You don't want to stop until you're done, until you're on that ground. But it takes good people to know when to stop it. Congratulations on the ref for making that bold choice and just cut it off. Right? Like
I agree. His corner should have, and this has happened too many times, Mike. With Magomed Abdusalamov and Mike Perez, but you and I could sit here for, next 30 years, and well, I won't be alive then, but you will, and we could name 600 fights where guys, you're looking and you're hitting your head going, stop the fight. It's not competitive.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. I think there should, they should put something into place where these refs take some sort of course to really recognize when that's going on. It's a big responsibility on their hands.
That's a wonderful idea because, doctors at ringside, as you well know, don't need permission to examine a fighter or stop a fight.
Right.
And, it was very unusual for Buddy McGirt after Maxime Dadashev died. Mm-hmm. He had another fighter 6-7 months later taking a beating. And he just said, that's enough. And the fighter complained. He said, you took 12 unanswered shots to the head. That's enough. It's over. You're done. Yeah. And more guys have to do that. And if the corners aren't willing to do it, I know Russ Amber would have. Yeah. I love Russ, but he was the cut man. He wasn't in charge of the corner. And Russ has always taken a fighter's, what's best for the fighter first. But so many guys don't. And they let the fighter continue in the hopes that they'll regain the upper hand and win. And they often don't. But if they do, as you said, they still take terrible damage.
Yeah, they do. They do. From that first concussive blow, every blow after that causes damage.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, do you want to speak when you're retired or do you not want to speak when you're retired?
That's essentially what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad that it happens. Maybe in the future they'll be able to implement something that will, help the refs recognize, when they should be calling these fights. Because for us to sit back and watch it from TV and be able to see it happening, or being in the audience watching it, and we can see the outside. Sometimes it's hard for that ref to kind of see it because he's looking for other things, maybe not noticing, the gloss over the eyes, or not noticing that he's. Sure, he might be blocking, but he's not intelligently blocking. It's more of an instinctual block, right?
Right. And, I was really glad sad when, in Montreal when Jeanette Zakaris died, she was 18.
Yeah.
She wasn't really a fighter. I mean, she wanted to be, but it's like you or I saying, hey, we should get to play for the Leafs because we live in Toronto. It doesn't work that way. No. And her husband was the guy that brought her up with other fighters. They were there to lose. And one of the people in the Montreal boxing community said, well, there was no evidence in her brain that she had former brain bleeds. And the neurosurgeon at the Montreal Polytechnic said, that's because it was swollen. You can't tell anything until the swelling goes down.
Right.
Then you'll see it. You can't check the transmission on a car after a car crash.
No.
Everything's cleared away. Obviously, if the swelling goes down and you check it, there will be previous brain bleeds. Yeah. In fact, she was told before she came up she had a serious brain injury and she shouldn't fight. But that's boxing.
Yeah, it is what it is. There's not
Yeah.
much we can do about it at the moment.
And
You know,
we love
it. And I love the sport. I love
Me too.
watching it, and you know, it's sad that some of these fighters end up the way they do. It's a sad thing.
It is, and as you and I know, there's no feeling in the world in any sport or anything like that 1 minute before a great fight.
Yeah.
Right, but before Chavez Mayweather, but not Chavez Mayweather Canelo.
Yeah.
You know, and or Sergio Martinez, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Before a fight, that 1 minute of anticipation when the referee gives them the instructions, and you go, oh man,
Yeah.
no one call. I don't care,
Yeah.
you know, if Julia Roberts is stripping over there.
Yeah.
I'm not turning my head. I cannot miss this.
Yeah, yeah. You want to see that initial meeting in the center of the ring. That's right. Anticipation for that. That's what drives you to watch this stuff. You know, I used to love back in the day when I would get that, and it would be like Mike Tyson.
Oh yeah.
You know, you'd get in there, the anticipation. You're like, all right, everybody, shh, and then it was over.
It was over. Yeah, and Mike Tyson. I mean, he came in like Jack Dempsey, one of his heroes. He was a warrior.
Yeah.
He came in to fight. I'm not there to fool around. I'm not your friend. Yeah. This is an athletic competition. I'm there to bash your skull in. And you know, the look on Conroy Nelson's face, the Canadian fighter, of sheer terror before the fight. And also, you know, before the Michael Spinks fight, they had adjoining dressing rooms, and Tyson put his hand through the wall when he was warming up, and Spinks, they said, almost fainted. Like his jaw dropped. I can't believe I'm fighting this guy. And, you know, Marshall Warfield, the comedian, had that joke about, you know, Desiree Washington. And he said, if you go to Mike Tyson's hotel room at 4 a.m, you're either there to fight or to, to have sex. And I didn't notice any title belt around her waist. No. So, you know, I mean, Tyson was must-see TV.
Oh, yeah.
You put asses in the seats. You had to see it.
You had to. Yeah.
And as you know, people for days after, did you see that punch? That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I was doing stand-up at the time when Douglas beat him, and I went on stage after the fight, and I told people, and they laughed. And they said, that's the funniest thing you said all night. This was in Hamilton. City that smells as good as it looks. And
right, the Steel City.
The Steel City. And no one believed me. They said, yeah, Tyson lost to Buster Douglas. Yeah, right. You know, that's right. You're right, buddy. What's next? The Leafs won the Stanley Cup?
Yeah.
No one believed me. And then no one believed it could happen, but it did.
No.
And that's the great thing about the sport. Any man or woman at any time can rise from obscurity to world glory.
Yeah. And in the blink of an eye. And all it takes is one good punch. One well-timed punch placed, and the way to follow up and capitalize on that. Either that one punch catches them and they go down, or it shifts the entire fight in your favor and you end up coming out as a victor in the decision, or, you know, it takes a bunch of shots and, you know, technical knockout. But yeah.
You know, I got to tell you what fight I loved recently was it the featherweight Oscar, was it Rivera? Against Navarrete. And,
yes. Big fight.
And Navarrete was winning. Is it Rivera? Is that the correct name?
Yeah, I believe it's Rivera.
And I don't know why someone's calling me, but I'll decline it. Anyway, the thing is that Rivera was getting his face punched in, but I loved him because he never quit. He kept
never.
moving forward and kept trying to win.
That was a great fight. You know, I know those guys. They've got heart. They've got heart that nobody else has, and it's incredible. It was. Refusal
to be beat. Yeah. Where Barrett said to his corner, "I don't care if I can't see out of the eye. I'm not quitting. You're gonna have to kill me. I'm not quitting. It's not gonna happen." And what I liked about it too, when it was over, he said the better man won.
Yeah.
He's a great fighter. The only thing I didn't like, as we said at the time, was it shouldn't take 40 minutes to wrap one fighter's hand, a single hand. And there was a lot of tape on Navarrete's hand. But then again, Rivera's cornermen weren't there.
Right.
So
that was a big fight. I love, you know what, Navarrete never, he never ceases to amaze me with the way that he fights. He's just he's very resilient. He's one of those guys that can get in there. He can take punishment and give it at the same time.
and when he got knocked down by the Australian, I thought that may have been the worst thing the Australian guy did.
Yeah, oh yeah, because right then and there that it's bad from there.
Yeah, it's almost like he got up and said, "You know what? I was content to have some fun and beat you on points, but now I'm going to have to knock you out."
Yeah,
and, I've seen that so many times with Alexis Arguello in fights where he had fights that it was doing well, and the other guy dropped him, and then he got up and he just shook his head and went, "Okay, now it's over." The famous story about Sam Langford, the great Canadian fighter from Nova Scotia, greatest fighter never to win a world title. And he was in a fight in London, England, against Iron Haig was the guy's name. And he comes out in the 8th or 9th round, and he touches gloves. And the guy says, "What are you doing, Sam? You only touched gloves in the last round." And he said, "That's right, son. And for you, this is the last round." And then he positioned him in the ropes over right where a reporter was who had called Langford yellow and a coward, and he knocked him out cold, one shot.
That's like Babe Ruth calling the shot, right?
Yeah, and he did apparently. He didn't say, "I'm going to hit it there."
Yeah.
Apparently, what he said was, "It only takes one."
Yeah.
And they snapped the picture because the Cubs bench was really riding him. And I wish I could remember the name. A great author, Creamer was his name, and he wrote a great book on Babe Ruth. And he said he was at the game, and he said Ruth he said it only takes one, so he would never admit after if
Right.
That's the great thing about sports, right?
Yeah.
There should be a show. I tried to pitch a show on Greatest Sports Mysteries to find out what happened in certain things, and a lot of it's boxing. So it's just very difficult to push boxing these days to television.
It is. So there's not much boxing for this weekend that's televised. I know we do have one going on tonight. In Billy Nicholson. This one's on ESPN Plus. It's already started. This one, Christian and Billy will defend his WBC Continental Americas title in a 10-round main event with contender Dimon Nicholson. Born in Cameroon, 2016 Olympian for France. And Billy boasts an impressive record, 24-0, 20 KOs. I do like this kid. I've been watching him for a while. He clinched that Continental Americas belt in September with a 3rd-round TKO against Ronnie Landetta. That was back in 2001. Since then, he's amassed several top-level wins, beating American Ronald Ellis, also Najib Mohammadi. And this past March, and Billy came out on top in a tough fight against Carlos Gongora, winning by unanimous decision. Nicholson, he's got a 26-5-1 record with 22 knockouts, is a power puncher fighter with a decade-long professional career. He's coming off that decision defeat over former dual weight champion Demetrius Andrade in January. So what are your thoughts on Billy?
Well, I had a question to ask you before that.
Okay.
I like Billy. I think he's a good fighter, and I like watching him. Why are there so many negative comments about Demetrius Andrade?
I don't know. I like him. I like
him too.
I've liked him. I've never seen anything wrong with him. There's a lot of negative comments about him. I'm not sure why people hate. I just,
He doesn't call people, he's not rude to anyone. He's got a lot of class.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good fighter. He hasn't had big fights, but no one's wanted to fight him. Charlo, on the other hand, is classless.
Yeah.
So is Adrian Broner, but they pick on Andrade, and he doesn't do anything wrong.
I think it's because he's just too soft in the media. He's not, he's like, okay, you look at fights, you come up, you find out the fight's going to happen in 4 weeks. For 4 weeks, these guys usually are on social media, I'm going to do this to this guy. I'm going to do this. Andre just zip-lipped. He doesn't really talk too much crap. He kind of just stays very low key. He's never really in the media until the press conference, and then the press conference
Terrence
happens.
Crawford, yeah.
Yeah, he's just very. I don't know. I guess they believe that maybe he can't fill seats. Like I like him as a fighter. I think he's a great talented boxer. He's shows great class in the ring, outside of the ring. He's got an impressive record. He's got wins, and he's beaten some great guys, and definitely.
It's
Definitely,
knockouts that put asses in the seats, and in comedy, it's dick jokes that put asses in the seats. And purists like us will always love Sugar Ray Robinson or Willie Pep or Muhammad Ali, but people want to see knockouts. And
yes.
That brings me to my next question for you. Does Charlo really have a chance against Canelo going up 2 weight divisions?
I don't know. He carries a lot of power in the weight that he's in. It's whether or not that power is transferable up to weight classes, right? Because there are those guys who fight at a weight that is lower than what they naturally feel good at, so that power tends to transition very well. Where you got these guys who are trying to pack on weight. First, when you pack on the weight, you got to learn how to gain your power back in a different way. It's a completely different process. So, what the thing is with Charlo, I do like he's got that ability. He's got that ability to really close the distance fast, and he's got that explosive power in that hand, and he knows how to use it. He knows how to capitalize on it, and I think he likes to play that center of the ring. He likes to press his guys on the ropes. If he can catch Canelo, there might be an opportunity for him to rally against that, catch him, and maybe drop him. But
Foreman, yeah.
I
don't know. I mean, let's not forget Canelo himself came up from 154 to 160 to 168 to 175 and did it gradually. I just don't know why Canelo didn't go after his brother, who's a natural 160, and would only have to jump up a weight class.
I don't know. You know what? A lot of people say that Canelo has been playing that pick your partner game very, very well throughout his career, which he kind of has, but
that's what you're supposed to do. Make the most money of your title while you have it, for the least amount of risk. Very few guys like Ray Leonard or Muhammad Ali or Joe Louis that took on guys that could do damage,
right,
and beat them all. But Charles a bigger man and definitely doesn't have any fear. He's faster, and everywhere I've been reading, I don't know why, but that they say Canelo looks like he may have lost a step. I haven't seen it. And
I haven't either. He hasn't been in media as much as he has in the past.
I don't think he's ever been knocked down, has he?
I not that I recall.
He's got a good chin because he's got great balance. He takes a good shot.
Yeah,
Golovkin really hit him, and it did nothing.
Yeah, I believe that his ability to that elusiveness that he has, he's able to absorb a lot of the power that's coming in off those shots when he does get hit.
Right.
When you pull back, he is taking a lot of that pressure off. But see, the thing is with Charlo is he can close that gap so quick, right? You might not have that ability to move back fast enough to be able to take off that sting of that shot.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me, Mike, when he fought Brian Castano, and I think this was the second fight, and Castano was winning, and then it was over. It was just over that quickly. You shook your head and you go, how did this happen?
Yeah.
And he just turned it up to like 4 or 5 notches, couple uppercuts, a couple hooks, and that was it. Castano was done. And Charlo turned it up. And
he has that ability. He has that ability to turn it on. Like when you watch his highlight reels are all the same. It's wham, come in, huge hit, play that angle, boom, 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 boom. It's over. Same thing. It's his recipe. You can watch it every single knockout. It's like the same thing. And I think if he's able to catch Canelo the right way, he might be able to drop him. And he could do but
anyone can be dropped or knocked out.
Anyone. And it's whether or not Canelo's chin can still stand up to that kind of punishment, right?
Well, I mean, I don't personally like Charlo, but he's a great fighter without a doubt.
Right.
And, I've had people say, or I've heard people say, excuse me, he's really full of himself. Well, to get in the ring and have someone try to kill you, you have to be.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
can't get in a boxing ring and not be full of yourself.
Yeah. On this undercard tonight, in the co-main event, we have Steve Claggett. Wow, haven't seen this guy out in a while. Local hero, 35, 7-2, 25 KOs. He's defending his NABF title against the Mexican veteran Carlos Sanchez, who is 24-1 with 19 KOs. What are your thoughts on Claggett?
Well, I like him. Here's an interesting story. People will say about fighters like him, like you were just saying, haven't seen him in a while. And one of the reasons for that in boxing is a guy like that he's trying to get fights, and then somebody will call him and say, I got a fight for you in 4 weeks. It's this amount of money. You're fighting this really good guy. And he'll say, can I have an extra month? No, take it or leave it. And a lot of times guys like him just say, no, I'm not ready. I'm not going to get hurt.
Right.
And I'm not going to be a punching bag. But I think he's a great fighter, and I like to see more of him. There's more fighters like him in boxing than there are, Floyd Mayweather's.
Yeah.
He's
a
talented guy.
He's been fighting. He's actually been fighting quite often this year. It's just we haven't seen too many televised ones for him. That's a problem. He has fought 3 times this year. Rafael Guzman Lugo, that was back in March, and then he fought again in June. So this is pretty good that we're seeing a little bit more of him. Maybe he's looking for that world title.
Yes, and he's not fighting bums. He's fighting guys that can really do damage, and he's they're still not giving him his due. That's people don't understand how incredibly frustrating that is for him.
Oh, that's good. It's got to be just mind-boggling to them. Like he took on Alberto Machado, he's taking on Carlos Sanchez tonight. His last fight, Machado, the one before that, Lugo. He's taking on Tony Lewis. He's fought a bunch of no slouches. He's taking on some
elite level fighters, and you can't take a round off against him.
No,
he doesn't have it easy. You can't just say I'll coast this round.
No,
the guy thinking if I can knock this guy down or beat him, that helps my career.
Yeah,
and so it's tough for him, especially because since a network like HBO doesn't do boxing, which I thought was a very financially foolish move. That and it's proven to be that. There were more spots, and boxing goes through these cycles. But a guy like that should be on TV. He can easily become a fan favorite and get the momentum behind him for a world title shot. And he should.
Definitely. I believe so. Now, there's a lot of Canadians, man, that don't get the recognition that they should. There's a bunch of good fighters on this undercard too. Alexander Gomont, this kid, 8-0. He's taking on Ulysses Tovar Rivera, who's 8-0. Both these guys going head-to-head. Ranked 237 versus 271 in the middleweight division. That's going to be a great fight. We got Vanessa LePage taking on Tima Nagy. This is going to be a nice girl fight there. Luis Santana, 9-0. There's another kid to watch out for. We got Christopher Guerrero, another kid to be watching out for, sub-10 fighter, but he's 7-0 right now in that welterweight division. There's going to be some great fights on this. I know it already started at 6:30. Eye of the Tiger, man, they're really
great work.
They're stepping up their game.
Yeah, I like Camille Estefan a lot, and I honestly think, I know you're too modest to accept this, but I honestly think fights like these would be great if you were helping broadcast them. Or you were there in the audience and you could explain to the people there, this is what this guy does. This is what he's capable of. This is why you're in for a great fight. So don't talk and tell jokes and look at your phone. Watch his fight. These guys have skills, mad skills, and they deserve to be recognized.
Definitely. And honestly, I like, there's another guy that I like in Toronto, Lee Baxter. Shout out to him. He's doing some good things for the Canadian scene. He's been putting on a lot of really great shows, out in Niagara. He's done a couple. Really like Rebel Entertainment Complex, Toronto, right on the water. What a great place to have an event. Both 3 of the ones that have been there now, sold out show, great fights. We had what? a championship fight. Brian Acosta, that was a good one for the WBC
Right.
American title. He's signing good fighters. He's putting together good fights. He's putting asses in the seats, and he's worked with the Zone now. The Zone is starting to show some of his events, so it's nice to see that Toronto and Canada are finally getting a little bit of recognition. I'd like to see more. What do you think we need to do, Lou?
Well, that's a good question. I had one of the best times of my life with my wife Cynthia. Out of Adam or Lee Baxter, my very dear friend who I really love, Adam Harris, was working with him at the time, and we were in Niagara Falls, and he had a fight card there, and Custio Clayton was on, and we had a wonderful time, and we were talking to everyone around us. It's people don't understand when you go to fights. It's such a convivial thing. I think what we need to do to answer your question, because I always go off on a tangent, but you know me, I repeat everything. So if you miss everything, you miss nothing. Newspapers have to get back into carrying the sport of boxing, radio stations, and TV. And what's frustrating for me, when a guy like Steve Buffery retires from the Sun, we lose a great boxing writer. Right. And in the States, they cover it, but up here they don't. And it comes down to you and me and other people, Graham, Eric, Neil, talking about it, because they don't know what they're missing. And I have to, it's very upsetting to me that Canadians going back 150 years, world champions, don't get the recognition, so Americans eventually claim them. But what upsets me, and I've said this so many times before, is when you speak to people at the fan radio and different, most TV shows, newscasts for all networks that drop their sportscast. It's just a regular person telling you about the Jays or the Leafs or the Raptors. Right. And they don't cover boxing. They say, well, MMA is more popular. That's not true. The live gate numbers and the pay-per-view are much better for boxing than MMA. MMA is just new, and they don't care about that. We need to get these local people involved and promoting the sport more on the news.
Yeah.
And these are fighters that damn well, deserve to be recognized. They're very skilled athletes, and the majority of them that I know are also gentlemen and gentlewomen outside of the ring. They do a lot of community work, and they work very hard at what they do. And I wish to God people would give them credit and go to their fights. Boxing is one of the few sports in Canada that you can afford to actually get a good ticket.
Yeah.
For $20 or $30 and see. You go to a Jays game, you're paying $200-300 for a good ticket. You go to a Raptors game, you're paying $1,500, $2,000. Same with the Leafs.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
And boxing, you'll get a full night. United Promotions and my dear friend Tyler Buxton and Don McDonald, they're putting on a great card in Pickering. They're going to have 89 fights.
It's a great card, actually.
Yeah, it is a great card. There's no stiffs. There's no easy fights. There's no setups. These are all great fighters fighting each other because they want to, and they deserve credit for that. And that should be promoted. But they have a deal with Eye of the Tiger, but it should be broadcast. It wouldn't cost TSN or Sportsnet that much to send one camera or two cameras and record it and put it on, and people would watch it.
Definitely. Or we could broadcast it and people will watch it.
Yes.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
We need to talk to Tyler.
That'd be perfect for you because you know the Canadian scene better than anyone in Canada. And seriously, and you do, and you could be on camera. You could be there broadcasting the fight, but before you could do your own show explaining why it's an important fight, who these people are, and why you as a Canadian should support them.
Yes, definitely. I do. I've done my due diligence. I have gone to these smaller gyms, these amateur shows, and I'm telling you, the amount of talent that is coming up through the Canadian boxing team right now is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And Angelo Dundee, when I did Cinderella Man, said the next big power in boxing is going to be Canada. He said the talent here is phenomenal. It's just that you Canadians don't get behind your own people.
No, we're too busy getting behind our Leafs and our Jays and our Argos and TFC, and we're not watching our boxers. It's sad.
No, and there's I think 13 Canadians in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. One of them is a Jewish woman from Vancouver, Eileen Eaton, who became the top promoter in California and physically kicked Don King out of one of her shows because he didn't want to pay. But you have the first black man ever to be a world champion, George Dixon, for Nova Scotia. And what's happening now in the States, and I told you I sent stuff into Canada Post. I said, if you don't claim George Dixon and Sam Langford and all these great fighters, Americans will do it. And that's what the Americans are doing now. They're referring to them as American because they fought in the States, and they're coming out with stamps for them. I mean, that's pathetic. They belong to us. They're Canadians. They never changed their citizenship.
No. No. I remember back in the day when we used to have, what was it, Friday night fights at the Gardens?
Yeah.
That's like, man, what happened? Well, I kind of know what happened. Ken Hayashi kind of messed that up.
Yeah, Hayashi didn't have the experience or the tact to deal with promoters. I understand promoters and managers are always trying to get something by you. That's the way the sport's been for 300 years.
Right.
And I understand Hayashi didn't want to take a chance, but I think he went way overboard when he would make agreements with people,
right,
and then go back on them. And I know for a fact, because I worked for Lennox Lewis and Les Woods at Global Legacy Boxing, and I remember, and Les Woods, like Lennox, is a gentleman. I never saw him raise his voice, even if he was angry. And I remember Ken Hayashi calling him, "Where the F do you get off putting on 25 fights? Who do you think I'm going to supply you with 25 referees? Who the hell do you think?" And he kept cursing at him. And Les said, "Ken, there's 7 fights. There's 25. No, our lawyers met last week. We have a deal. There's 7 fights. I offered to pay. Well, we pay for it. Right. But I said, the government doesn't have to pay. I will pay everything. You're off the hook. Well, don't you tell me that." And you just, I got a call like that from him one time on my phone, and I was just a PR director. And he was yelling at me. I said, "Who the hell do you think you are? I'm just doing publicity." So, but that's the kind of person you're dealing with.
Right.
And it's since thankfully moved on. He stagnated boxing. He didn't like boxing. He hurt boxing.
Right.
It was not good for boxing. And he wasn't open to discussion. I offered to interview him and not alter anything he said. No. Managers and promotional companies said, "Can we at least sit down and just talk?" No.
Wow.
So you can't, he wasn't familiar with it like they are in New York,
right,
in LA, and Montreal.
Yeah, he was just he was going by his own agenda.
That was it.
And not taking any sort of opinion from anybody else. And
I knew of several fighters that said to me the problem was this, that they presented a medical report to him. And he said, "This medical report is 5 weeks old. I need one from today." And they said, "But OHIP won't cover that. I need it from today. It's 10 a.m. You have to 1 to get it." And the person would go, pay the money, get it. They'd get there at like 12:05. Ken's gone for the day.
Yeah.
So he would do that deliberately to people. That's unprofessional. And also the hand wrapping situation. The hand wrap rules in Ontario haven't been updated in 100 years.
Oh my
and he
God.
wouldn't hear anything about it.
Wow.
So we've thankfully moved on from him. People say you don't want someone in boxing running it. I think you do. There are honest people in boxing. Someone like yourself, myself, Graham, someone like that could easily run it. Not easily, but run it above board. We're not stupid.
Yeah.
We know when someone's trying to pull a fast one. We can look at a record and say, this guy's not 14-1. I know who he is.
Right.
He's lost all these fights. So, and Hayashi would also nix fights. And I would say to him, "You're not a promoter. That's not your legal purview. Your purview is to collect taxes and provide doctors and referees and judges. That's the only power you have."
Yeah.
But he didn't care. At one time before a fight, he was checking gloves that were encased in cellophane in a box to see if they've been tampered with. And I said, they're not going to be tampered with when they're coming from the factory.
No.
They're going to be tampered by the trainer just before the fight.
Yeah.
How could you not know that?
That's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah, that's
it's
just
like what the fighter knows the manufacturer, and he's like, put some lead in those gloves or something. Like, come on,
yeah.
that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Well, you know what? I'm glad that he's no longer involved. We do have a great group of guys coming up. Come to mind. Lucas Batty's another one. You got
Great
the
fighter. I like him a
great,
lot.
like him. That kid, he's been through tons of stuff. We got the Wilcox clan.
Right.
Those guys, wow, they're
If
kicking
I
ass.
if Canada goes to war, I want them on my side.
Right.
Because
Right.
those guys are going to win and they're not going to quit. I love their father. Their father's a wonderful man and a
Yeah.
great trainer. And these guys are as tough as it gets. They're real gentlemen
Yeah.
when you speak to them.
Yeah.
And I spoke to them, and Steve Molitor, who I just love,
Yeah.
who gives back. But I spoke to Molitor, Logan Cotton McGuinness, the Mr. Wilcox, and a bunch of them when Margarito was taking a beating from Pacquiao. And I said, should they stop it? And they all gave me a look like, no. He cheated. He loaded his gloves. Let him feel it. Let him see what it's like to take a beating.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. They're a great bunch of guys. Definitely. They support their local.
Yeah.
They support all the local gyms. I've been to many fights where these guys have you know just showed up, just randomly sitting in the audience, supporting those those youngins, man.
I
Uh,
got
Another good kid, Josh Lupia. Love this kid. Another super lightweight. This kid, man's got a story. Shot in a drive-by or something like that. Almost lost his
Wow.
leg. He's bounced back. They told him he was going to get his leg cut off. That kind of stuff. And this kid's bounced back. He's 11-0 right now. He keeps just destroying things. He fought. He actually fought yesterday in Montreal, and I believe he won. He's now 11-0. So be on the lookout for this kid. Oh no, sorry, 12-0, 10 KOs.
Wow.
So yeah,
I have to say, Mike, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this week we lost a tremendous member who I adored of the boxing community in Toronto and Canada, Everett McEwen.
Oh wow.
He was a wonderful trainer. He always had a smile on his face. And every time I saw him, he'd say, you should come to my gym and help me train. And I would say, I'm not really a trainer. I'm a writer who's a big mouth. Sorry, my computer's caught here. But anyways, and he would say that, and I loved him. He always had a smile. He helped everyone. And he asked me one time, he had a fighter who came, I don't know if it was from Ghana or Somalia, who was part of a youth who was indoctrinated as a kid to be a killer in a gang. And this kid won his first fight. It was, sorry about this. It was a great story. And in the second fight, he was goofing off and he lost and he went nuts. And Everett said, can you talk to him? And I did, because it was Everett. But he was kind to everyone. He was a wonderful trainer. And most people don't know he was trained to be a trainer by Angelo Dundee.
Oh, wow.
He went to Florida and Angelo saw him, fell in love with him, and said, this guy's a class guy.
Pro Street Gym, right?
Yeah, Fifth Street Gym.
Yeah.
And Angelo trained him, and Everett came back to Canada, and he was just a wonderful person. It's a huge personal loss for me. It's a huge personal loss for you and for everyone in the sport that had the privilege to know him and talk to him and just spend time with him. And I can't tell you how many times I was with him. There were two fights in particular where his fighter, I said, how's this going to go? And he said, my guy's going to take it in under a minute. And the guy did. He said, the other guy can't fight, doesn't know what he's doing. And he's mouthy, and he's arrogant, and he's going to get, unfortunately, a tough lesson.
Yeah.
And the other fight, he said, this will go maybe 2 rounds. He was right both times.
He knew his people. He knew his fighters.
Yeah, and he loved the sport. He supported other athletes. Always, every time I saw him, he always had a nice smile and a hug. And I always, when I wrote for the Fight Network, would mention him, how great he is, and how blessed and lucky Canada is to have someone like him. Same with Dwight Frazier and other people, Yvette Raposo and someone like Steve Molitor. I mean, Molitor was a world champion, and he goes
Right.
out and gives back to so many fighters all the time, and he never gets the credit he's due for how great he was and for how kind and generous he was.
Right. Right. You know, there's a lot of guys out there that didn't get the credit they deserved. You know,
That's right.
tons of them, tons of Canadian boxers. You know, man, I can think of so many. There's just too many to list.
Well, no one today would know Johnny Coulon. He was from Toronto. He grew up beside the house where Mary Pickford lived, and he was the world bantamweight champion. And he ended up living in Chicago. He was best friends with Jack Johnson and told him not to go down south in 46. Johnson died in a car crash. He said, you know they're bigots. You know you're going to get angry, and you know you're going to speed. And Johnson loved him. He was famous, and I'm sure you've seen this, for people couldn't pick him up. He was only 5'2", but he put his hand on a nerve behind their neck. So people from Dempsey to Ali and Foreman could never physically lift him up. And I'm one of the books, I'm pitching a book. I just fired my publisher and went to another publisher, a real publisher. But another book I wanted to pitch and do it as a TV documentary as well. No one knows George Budge Byers and George Godfrey. And George Godfrey and Byers were first cousins. They were born in the 1860s and 1880s in Prince Edward Island. Now, if you think of how small the Black community there is today, it was even smaller then. And they end up moving to Boston and becoming world champions. John O'Sullivan wouldn't fight Godfrey. Turned him down twice. And he won the colored heavyweight title. Byers won the middleweight and colored heavyweight title and beat everyone, but the champion, the white middleweight champion, Tommy Ryan, wouldn't fight him. Refused. Oh, wow. And here's the great thing about George Godfrey. He died, unfortunately, at 40 of tuberculosis in 1902, but he died extremely wealthy because all the money he made, he invested it in land in Massachusetts. And he said to his children and his wife, never sell the land, only rent it. And to this day, in September in 2023, his family is worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh, wow.
He was that smart. And George Budge Byers, George Godfrey looked like George Clooney with a mustache, you know.
Okay.
And George Budge Byers had the best clothes. He was a gentleman, fought for 9 years. And he said, listen, if Ryan's not going to give me a chance, then why bother? You know, no point taking more shots to the head. I got all the money I need. He knocked out Barbados Joe Walcott. He beat a lot of great fighters. And he trained Sam Langford. So just an incredible story, but no one in Canada knows him.
Well, yeah, then you know, that'd be a great book.
Yes, and I see
Cedric
joined us.
Cedric, what's up, brother?
Good evening, guys. Good evening. Good evening.
Cedric from the scorecard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Cedric, are you going through a heat wave in Britain now?
Am I going through a heat wave? Where, sorry?
Where are you located?
I'm in Windsor, Ontario.
Oh, okay. Is Windsor going through a heat wave?
Yes, we are actually. Yes, we are going through a little bit of a heat wave. So I'm in the gym right now. I just finished right now. That's why I'm just hopping on right now. But
what's the name of your gym?
West Windsor Boxing Gym. We just not officially open yet, but I just got to work with some new fighters. But the gym that I was at before is the Windsor Amateur Boxing Club with legendary Charlie Stewart.
Do you know, Cedric, that in the early 1900s, late 1890s, there were a fair amount of world title fights in Windsor between American fighters and American and Canadian fighters?
I don't know the details, but I did hear Charlie used to tell me stories about that. Like I'm pretty sure who was it? I'm pretty sure George Foreman trained here for one of his training camps. And of course, a lot of the Kronk guys would just come over just to get away.
Oh yeah, but I'm talking about the great Joe Gans, lightweight champion.
Oh wow, history
in the early 1900s, and Frank Earn, the man he beat, and other fighters back then.
You know what? With that being said, it's got to say thank you for your show. I really appreciate your show and the history that you bring, because there's not any other find like that. So I really appreciate it.
The trainer you just mentioned, Charlie,
Yeah.
should be a household name.
Yes, definitely.
Right? People should be taught who he is in Canada. These are our heroes, and we don't respect them well enough. People should know him.
Yeah. I think it's fortunate right now with the if social media was alive back then, their names would be out there a lot more. But so I guess it's up to this generation for people like myself and yourself with your historic show to keep their names alive, right?
It kills me when I read about Canadian fighters in the last 100 years, in any decade. And I think, how can Canadians not know them? These guys were undisputed world champions known throughout the world. George Dixon was not only the most famous black man on earth, he was one of the most famous men on earth. The first ever black man and Canadian to be a world champion, and invented the heavy bag, the speed bag, shadow boxing, and won the world bantamweight title, lost it, regained it, and no one remembers him here.
No,
I think the reasons for that is most of the bigger networks that promote sports and specifically boxing are more American, so they don't really focus more on the Canadian history. They'll focus more on, right? So I think so. Another reason why it's important to like and subscribe to Talkin Fight, because it's the only YouTube channel that you're gonna find stuff like this here.
Yeah.
Right. On my Substack, Once Upon a Time in the Ring, I talk about these guys and how great they were and who they beat, and Dixon was 5'3" and maybe 118, 120 pounds, and would take on guys 145 and beat them easily. I mean, his skill level was incredible. But I think part of the reason they're not recognized is that there's still a fair amount of racism, and there certainly was back then when Dixon fought, and a lot of black fighters fought back then, like Joe Gans. They had to worry during a fight. They couldn't fight on the ropes because the cornerman for the other guy, the white guy, or his fans would hit them in the legs with pipes or straps or knives. And Dixon one time rolled his pants up and of flesh missing from his legs. That's why when they said to him, "Why do you fight in the middle of the ring?" He said, "I have no choice."
Wow. Which fighter was that again? Sorry.
George Dixon. And I met his great-great-grandnephew, who was a school teacher, along with my sister. And there's a book a friend of mine has out on him now, Jason Winders. It's a new book. It's been out for about a year maybe, on George Dixon. And he was called the fighter without a flaw. They would watch him for 70 rounds, Cedric, and the boxing writers would say he didn't make a single mistake in 70 rounds.
Wow.
Not one. There's not a scar on him. There's not a bruise. There's no swelling. When he had you hurt, he went with a head shot to the head. He threw a left hook to the liver. When he wanted to get you, he put his hands up too high, and when you went forward for his stomach, he'd shift his stance and hit you with a left hook on the chin and knock you.
Pretty unorthodox style.
And he had to agree, like all black fighters back then, that he wouldn't destroy his opponent in the first round or two, because no one would fight him otherwise.
Right.
He had to agree to let it go 8 or 9 rounds. Same with Sam Langford. Sam Langford was the same way. Langford, there's a story before a fight in England where he sees the cornerman for the other guy putting different stools in the ring. And he goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm trying to figure out which stool is the best." He said, "You ain't going to need no stool." We didn't go on no more than 60 seconds. We knocked him out in about 48 seconds.
That's hilarious.
Oh, yeah. And I was telling Mike the story before, Cedric, about he was fighting a guy named Iron Hag. And Langford went out in the 8th round and touched gloves. And the guy says to him, "What are you touching gloves for, Sam? You only touched gloves in the last round." And he said, "You're right, son. And for you, this is the last round."
Wow.
And then knocked him out.
Yo.
Now that's talking, walking the walk.
Yo, that is walking the walk and talking the talk for sure, bro. Yeah, that's some serious stuff.
He fought Jack Johnson in only his 20th fight.
Oh, wow.
He got beat really bad, got dropped 6 times. He dropped Johnson once, but Johnson could see how much better he was getting and wouldn't face him again. And after Johnson beat Burns, he had a signed deal to fight him in England, but he wouldn't do it. He never showed up.
Right. Cedric, what's your plan for the scorecard this weekend? Are you doing the Claggett and fight and Billy, or?
Hopefully, yeah. That's tonight.
It started at 6:30. The card. So yeah.
Ready.
Yeah, it started at 6:30. So.
Okay, yeah, I guess.
Claggett's another guy that should be more well known.
Yeah.
Can you talk about him a bit?
He's been around for a while. Like he's been around probably like the mid 2000s, late 2000s.
Yeah.
Not.
What weight class?
One of the lighter guys. I think what is it, 135 or 140?
Yeah, I believe so. He's what do you call it? Yeah, I think he's 140.
So junior welter.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, 140. He weighed in for tonight's fight at 139 3/4. And yeah, he has been around a long time, man. He debuted back in 08. He's been patiently waiting, for his time to shine. He's ranked 22 in the world right now, out of that, 2,104 in his division. Progress is sitting on the top up there, and then Lopez, Barbosa. So he's gonna have some big names to jump up against. You got Catterall is in there, Brendan Lee is in there, Richard Hitchenson's is in that same category. Liam Perro from Australia is in there, and then Claggett's just sitting above Jose Zepeda, Ernest Mercado, Adam Azim. So he's in the mix with some of these big names. So it's only a matter of time before we get to see Claggett. Maybe get that shot that he deserves.
It's only a matter of time, but he is a little bit older now, so hopefully.
He is. He's in his 30s, man. He's it's got to be. It's kind of like a now or never kind of thing,
Hopefully.
One fighter I've always liked is Steve Rolls, and I thought he could beat that Puerto Rican fighter from New York.
Yes, won that fight.
Yeah, definitely. And his promoter, the Puerto Rican fighter's promoter, said he triumphed. I said he didn't triumph. He got his ass handed to him, and you know it.
Yeah.
He lost. And you can lie and you can control the judges, but everyone knows that Steve Rolls kicked his ass. And I'm going to tell you something.
He's fighting. He's fighting on the 23rd of this month. If you want to watch him,
Steve.
Yep, he's taking on Austin Williams for the IBF North American middleweight title.
Austin Williams fought Navarrete, didn't he? Or no, not Navarrete. I've seen Austin Williams before.
Austin Williams just fought River Wilson Bent and beat him in the 8th TKO.
So, yeah, I mean, I've always liked Steve. He was with Kronk for a while, but he's a skilled technician. Yeah. There's very few guys that have his skill level, and he's a classy guy. He's a gentleman's gentleman, and he should be a star in Canada and in the United States.
Yeah. Good guy, good boxer.
Great guy.
He's 22-2. He's 22-2. He's fought some big names.
Even in the fight that he got stopped with Triple G, he was doing good in that fight. Like he was boxing.
He was doing good. He just made one mistake, but he won rounds in that fight. Yeah, he didn't run like everyone else did. He didn't back down.
Yeah.
He stood there and he outboxed Triple G.
That fight with Steve Rolls and Steve Rolls and Triple G. That fight was also pre-pandemic, right? So
yeah,
he's come a long way since then, and he's only lost one since then, and that was to Edgar Berlanga, and that was a unanimous decision. And
not impressed with Berlanga at all.
And I think that wasn't that the first time that Berlanga went to distance.
Yes, and
right. So
Berlanga's going to face a real good elite banger one day, and he's going to get knocked out. It's too easy to hit.
The problem with Berlanga is that it's a good and bad thing. I think he has 18, 19 fights now, but his first 16 fights were they first round knockouts?
Yes.
Something like that.
I mean, if you think about it, if all of those in 16 fights, if all those rounds equals up to 4 fights if they went the distance. So in in real life rounds, like he really only like 4, like up to those 16 fights, but only like four fights in, because they only lasted 1 round. So
That's a good point.
His lack of experience, even though it's good to promote, all these first round knockouts, his lack of experience is obviously caught up to him in the Steve Rolls fight, and I hope they give him some more development fights before they just throw him in there.
Yeah, because Steve wobbled him, and Steve's not a big puncher.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, as you know, Cedric, all the great trainers, Ray Arcel, Eddie Futch, all of them said you're hurting your fighter's progress by getting him stiff and letting him knock them all out. Because when he has to fight a good guy, he's going to get hurt. And the best example is here, Willie DeWitt and Sean O'Sullivan. And when they put Sean in against Simon Brown, a friend of mine from TSN asked Sean O'Sullivan's trainer or lawyer, who also was the lawyer for Sugar Ray Leonard, and said to him, "Are you aware that Simon Brown is the uncrowned middleweight or welterweight champion of the world? No one wants to fight him." And of course, Brown just demolished Sean.
Right.
And you got to have fights, Angelo Dundee would say, which you get progressively better by learning from each fight. You fight someone who's a teeny bit better than you, but that you can still beat.
Always.
And they're not doing that with Berlanga.
No, they're not. They're not doing it with a few. I know they're doing it with some of their heavyweights. Jared Anderson is one of them. That he had a bunch of first round knockouts. He's been brought to distance. He's been shown, like he's now shown that he has that ability to box, to use those skills. And that's the thing. When these guys just have all these first round knockouts, you don't get to see any skill. They don't get to improve on anything other than that, that big shot that's going to knock out these people. You got to see the technique as you go. And honestly, when they rush these guys and just put them in front of all these chumps, that's what happens. You get this guy who's undefeated, say he's 20-0, and then he gets in there with somebody really good, and then we never hear from him again because he gets his ass whooped. But he gets his ass whooped so bad because he doesn't have the ring experience. Rounds mean things. More like that's another thing. Like when you look, when I compare fighters, or I'm studying these amateurs, or I start studying these prospects, and hey guys, these guys are going to be contenders. I look at how many rounds they've been. You might have 20 fights, but you might only have 20 rounds.
Yeah.
What kind of experience do you have? There could be a guy who has.
I like Jared Anderson. I didn't at first, but the fact is, he fights. He says on TV, "It isn't me, it's my management. I want to fight other guys.
Yeah.
I'll fight anyone. I'll fight Dubois. I'll fight, who's the other guy we were talking about? The other British guy who fought Zhang.
Joe Joyce.
Yes, right, thank you. He said, I'll fight Joyce. I'll fight all these guys. I'll fight them. I'm not backing down from anyone.
Yeah.
But
then those promoters look and they're like, well, there's high risk, no reward. That's a big thing too. That comes into a factor with all this, is that the risk factor is high and the outcome and the reward are just not, they don't favor. So
that's why there's guys in boxing history like Charlie Burley, who was one of the greatest fighters ever to have lived, only lost a couple times. No one would fight him.
No.
They said it's not worth it.
Yeah. It's not worth getting dethroned.
Sugar Ray Robinson wouldn't fight him. He said, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
He's a real threat. What do I gain by fighting him? If I lose, I lose my title. Don't want to fight him again. And if I don't lose, they'll say it was fixed. So I gain nothing by beating him.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, guys, that was a quick hour, man. Lou, man, we could be on here all night just chatting back and forth. I'm telling you.
Every time I talk to anyone, it always ends up in boxing.
Oh, it's great.
Especially Muhammad Ali.
So, Cedric, we'll definitely see you. What time is your scorecard again?
I haven't been able to have a consistent time, but it'll be sometime, hopefully Sunday or Monday.
So, Cedric, it's great to meet you.
Yes, this is the first time you guys been on together, right?
Yes, I've seen him on camera, but I've never met him personally.
Exactly. Well, definitely, we're gonna have to do this again. Talking Fight fans around the world, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Friday Night Panel with yours truly, Mike Orr, my man Lou Eisen from the Lou Eisen Report, and Cedric in the den. Mr. Cedric Ben, are you coming back to join me on my Knuckle Up Knockout of the Week?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Excellent. So, guys, you will see us returning to in front of that camera on that wonderful Sunday with all those wonderful knockouts. But until then, guys, we'll see you next week. Same time, same channel, new topics. Take it easy.
Have a good night.